All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we are diving headfirst into this whole U.S. TikTok ban thing. It's a story that's, well, it's honestly gotten pretty messy. We're talking deadlines, political back and forth, and honestly, a whole lot of questions about what happens next, you know?
Yeah.
So think of this deep dive like your cheat sheet to figuring out what's really going on with this TikTok ban.
It's really interesting when you think about how this whole situation kind of puts a spotlight on all the tension between this law Congress passed and what both the current president and the incoming president are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you throw in a possible Supreme Court decision, and it really becomes this pressure cooker of politics and legal stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. And speaking of pressure, let's talk about that deadline, right? The ban's supposed to go into effect this Sunday, January 19th. So, should we all be freaking out and deleting TikTok right now? Or is there more to it?
Well, hold on, because the Biden administration is actually trying to put the brakes on enforcing this ban, at least until Trump takes over.
So they're delaying it. Hmm, interesting. Sounds like they're trying to pass this hot potato on to the next guy.
You could say that. It's not exactly unusual during these transition periods, especially with something this controversial. But here's where it gets even more, twisty. Biden's not planning on fining companies who keep letting people access TikTok, even though the law says he should.
Wait, so the current president might be like ignoring part of the law? What's the logic there?
Well, it could be a way to try and, I guess, de-escalate the whole thing before Trump takes over. Remember, Trump's been pretty vocal, saying he wants to save TikTok.
Right, right. And is that just Trump being Trump, trying to undo whatever Biden did? Or is there more to it than that?
It's probably a mix of things, to be honest. Trump
Mm.
definitely has his own reasons for not liking this ban, especially when you consider how it could affect the economy.
Okay, so we've got Biden pumping the brakes, and we've got Trump maybe trying to pull a rescue mission. It's like a tug of war, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. And the rope they're fighting over is TikTok's future in the U.S. And there are a lot of people holding onto that rope, especially businesses who depend on that platform. We're talking about potentially losing over $1 billion in revenue every single month if this ban actually happens.
$1 billion a month. Yeah, that'll definitely get people's attention.
And it's not just those big tech companies feeling the pressure either. Think about all the smaller businesses out there who've built their whole marketing strategy around TikTok. They could be left scrambling to figure out new ways to reach their customers.
And of course, you can't forget about the creators. They're the heart and soul of TikTok, right?
Yeah.
So, what happens to them? All those thousands of people who make a living on that platform, do they just, I don't know, pack up and move to the next big thing?
That's the big question mark no one really knows for sure. This ban has the potential to completely disrupt the whole creator economy. And that's a huge deal, not just in the US, but globally. We're talking about a potential loss of 224,000 jobs, a lot of them directly tied to those creators.
This isn't just some kids dancing in their bedrooms anymore. This is about people's livelihoods. It's about businesses. It's about the future of, like, how we create and consume content online, you know?
You got it. And that's what makes this whole ban so incredibly complex. We're not just talking about one single app here. We're talking about a ripple effect that could completely change the whole digital landscape.
We're just talking about like the massive economic hit this ban could have, but what about the legal side of all this? I mean, this isn't like a done deal, is it? I feel like TikTok's been fighting back pretty hard.
Oh, yeah. They're not giving up without a fight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And their big argument is that this whole thing, this ban, it violates their First Amendment rights, specifically freedom of speech.
I mean, yeah, I can see their point. TikTok's become like this huge platform for all kinds of expression, hasn't it?
Right, exactly. They're basically saying that banning the app is straight up censorship, but the U.S. government's counter-argument is focused on national security.
Which all comes back to TikTok's ties to China, right?
Hmm.
I can see why that would make people nervous.
Exactly. The concern is that is ByteDance,
Yeah.
TikTok's parent company,
Yeah.
they could be forced to hand over all sorts of user data to the Chinese government. And we're talking everything like personal info browsing history, the whole shebang. It's a really sensitive issue, especially with how much people share on that app.
So it's freedom of speech versus national security. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And isn't the Supreme Court involved in all this somehow?
Oh, yeah, they are. They're the ones who'll ultimately decide whether this ban sticks or not. They could uphold it, they could strike it down, they could even send it back to a lower court, to take another look. And don't forget, Trump asked them to hold off on making a decision until he takes office. So there's that too.
So basically everything's on hold waiting for the Supreme Court. So what do you think? What are the chances they actually side with TikTok?
It's honestly anyone's guess. The Supreme Court They have a long history of defending free speech,
Yeah.
but they also take national security super seriously. It really could go either way.
Okay, but let's say, just hypothetically, that TikTok does win in court. Can they really come back from all this? I mean, all the bad press and all the suspicion around data security.
That's the million-dollar question. Even if they're legally in the clear, their reputation might already be shot. A lot of people in the U.S. are already hesitant to use TikTok, and rebuilding trust, that's a long uphill battle.
It's like, even if you win, you don't really win. This whole thing just shows how much tension there is between the US and China when it comes to technology.
Absolutely. This isn't just about TikTok. It's a symptom of a much bigger rivalry. You've got these two global superpowers, both trying to be top dog in the tech world, and data security is a major battleground.
So basically, every time we download an app, now we're taking a national security risk.
Well, that might be a bit of an oversimplification, but it does raise some valid concerns. It makes you think about privacy, security, all these big philosophical questions about how technology is shaping our lives. It's like every time you open an app, you're stepping into this global power struggle.
Okay, so let's play out the worst case scenario. The ban goes through. What happens to all those TikTok users? Do they all just jump ship to other platforms?
I don't think the demand for short-form video is going away anytime soon. We're already seeing other platforms, like Instagram, YouTube,
Yeah.
all rolling out their own TikTok-like features. It's like they're just waiting in the wings, ready to scoop up TikTok's audience.
So maybe this isn't the death of short form video, maybe it's just a power shift.
Exactly. We might see a whole reshuffling of the deck with new platforms popping up and the old ones grabbing even more power. But people aren't going to suddenly stop wanting to make and watch these kinds of videos. It's become such a big part of how we connect and express ourselves online.
It's wild to think that something that started with people sharing honey dances could end up changing the entire social media landscape. It's like that butterfly effect, one small thing causing a huge change.
That's a perfect analogy. It
Yeah.
really shows you how powerful these platforms can be. They become so deeply ingrained in our culture, and they have this huge influence on how we live our lives.
We've talked a lot about the potential downsides of this ban, but are there any silver linings? Like, could any good come out of this?
Well, some people argue that this could actually spark innovation and competition. If TikTok goes away, it leaves this gap that other companies are going to be scrambling to fill.
Yeah.
Imagine a whole wave of new social media platforms popping up, all trying to capture that TikTok magic.
So instead of being a death knell for social media, this ban could actually breathe new life into it.
That's one way to look at it. It could definitely shake things up and lead to some exciting new stuff.
Yeah.
But it also raises the question, can these new platforms avoid the same problems TikTok faced? Can they navigate all the data security and international relations stuff?
It's a cautionary tale for any new app that comes along, isn't it? They'll need to figure out all those issues from day one.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about all the individual users who are caught in the middle of this mess. It's easy to get lost in the big picture stuff. But this is about real people whose lives are being impacted.
It's true. We're talking about millions of people who use TikTok every single day for entertainment, for connection, for some even for their livelihoods. It's a good reminder that behind all the headlines and all the legal battles, there are real human stories.
And for a lot of those people, TikTok is more than just an app. It's a community. It's a creative outlet. It's how they make money. It's a part of their daily lives. And this ban could have a huge impact on them, and that's something we need to remember.
It's like even in the digital world, there are real human emotions and connections.
Exactly. And it really highlights the need for empathy and understanding as we try to navigate this complex and ever-changing digital world.
So in this second part of our deep dive, we've covered a lot.
Mm.
We've looked at the legal challenges, the geopolitical tensions, and how this ban could potentially reshape the entire social media world.
And as we head into this crucial weekend with the deadline right around the corner, the stakes couldn't be higher. These next few days are going to be key in figuring out what happens to TikTok in the U.S.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time really digging into this TikTok ban, all the political stuff, the legal battles, the economic fallout. But for this last part, I kind of want to zoom out a little and look at the bigger picture. Like, what does this whole saga tell us about the future of the internet as a whole?
This whole thing, it feels like a turning point. It brings up all these fundamental questions about data security, national sovereignty, how governments are going to try to control the digital world. It's like we're standing at this crossroads.
So are we headed towards like a more fragmented internet where different countries start setting up their own digital borders? I keep hearing people talking about the splinternet idea where the internet we know starts to break apart.
Yeah, It's definitely a possibility. I mean, we're already seeing it happening in some ways, like with China's Great Firewall,
Yeah.
and the EU's got those stricter data privacy laws right. This TikTok ban could be another step in that direction, leading to an internet that's less open and less connected.
And what would that actually look like for everyday people? Would we only be able to use apps and websites that our government approves? That sounds kind of scary.
It would definitely mean less choice and less access to information. Imagine not being able to connect with people in other countries because they're using platforms that are blocked where you live. It could really stifle innovation and limit how ideas are shared around the world.
That's a sobering thought. So, is there anything we can do to prevent this fragmentation from happening? Or is this splinter net inevitable at this point?
I think it's crucial that we have these open and honest conversations about these issues. We have to find some kind of balance between protecting national security and keeping those core values of an open and interconnected internet.
So, it's about finding that middle ground, right? A solution that takes security seriously but doesn't sacrifice the things that make the internet so important, like freedom of expression and being able to connect with people globally.
Exactly. We need solutions that are well thought out, that take different perspectives into account, solutions that respect the rights of both individuals and nations.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the TikTok ban, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
I really hope they come away understanding that the internet isn't just some abstract thing. It has real consequences, and the things we do online can have ripple effects. We need to be more aware of the data we're sharing, the apps we're using, and the potential risks involved.
It's about taking responsibility for our own digital footprint, right? Recognizing that our choices online have real world consequences.
Absolutely. And we need to hold our governments accountable for how they're acting in the digital world.
Hmm.
We need to make sure they're finding the right balance between security and freedom.
It's about charting a path forward that protects our individual rights and ensures that the internet continues to be a force for good in the world.
I couldn't have said it better myself. This is the conversation that's going to keep getting more and more important, and we all have a part to play in shaping what the future of the internet looks like.
Well, everyone, that's about it for our deep dive into the TikTok ban. We've really explored the depths of this issue and what it says about the challenges the internet's facing today. It's a complicated issue with no easy answers, but by staying informed, by talking about it, and by demanding more from our leaders, we can help ensure that the internet stays a force for positive change in the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.